like, couldn't get through Paladin at all.
Right.
It was all taunts, it all stood in the way, but now it's nothing to do with that. You don't need to care about attacking the face. You just just kill your own minions most of the time. And yeah, like you say, you can't heal past 30, so it's pretty irrelevant. So, going to be interesting to see how he tries to get a big enough board to get in there.
Exactly. Let's get into it. ShuiMoo on the top, and okasinnsuke, who I'm probably going to go for Sinsuke just to stop stumbling over my own words, is going to be on the bottom on that Paladin. And already, I mentioned earlier, this is top 16 of Masters Tour Ironforge. We are moving towards the end of the tournament with this round, and then obviously the top 8 tomorrow. But we are getting that representation across all regions. As now we have ShuiMoo from China up against Sinsuke from Japan. So already a cool face-off here as Crab Rider comes down nice and early. And although there's not the Hand of a Doll to follow up with, which is the preferred choice, there is that Blessing of Wisdom, Lorinda, which can get double draws next turn for Sinsuke if this Crab Rider isn't cleaned up.
Yeah, so I started my preparation a little bit late for this event, and so Crab Rider was already kind of established. And when you've seen it with the Blessing of Wisdom, you just wonder, why did anyone think this wasn't good at any point in the history of this deck? Trying to reconstruct why people didn't like it is so complicated when you've started off with this version. It's so weird. It's just so amazing.
It just ticks all the boxes, right? Like, it's a vehicle for Blessing of Wisdom in itself to, as you can see now, just start refilling the hand. Paladin really excels when it can draw quickly, but also even just any of the buff Librams, the Hand of a Doll, makes it a threat as well. So it's not just, like a Loot Hoarder is a decent card, it's a decent body and it draws a card, but it's never really a threat, whereas Crab Rider kind of ticks all the boxes as long as you've got 1 or 2 combo pieces with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, by 1 or 2 combo pieces, you mean any buff or anything at all. Like, and half the time it just kills 2 wands or something if you haven't got the pieces anyway. Like, that's lots of boxes that you're ticking indeed. Yeah, although go with that.
Although I mentioned that Paladin would need to heavily curve out to do well here, Sinsuke's hand is not super strong in terms of minion curve out, especially with the Crab Rider cleaned up. But he's about to hit Aldor Truthseeker on curve with a Libram of Judgment in hand as well. So there is a lot of damage where that came from. And the only weird interaction, I'm not sure how much Libram Paladin you played with Libram of Judgment, but although you think, this is great, it's reducing it, but then you quickly get a hand like this where your Libram reductions reduce all of your hand, so then you can't actually make the corrupt effect go off on the Judgment. But then again, honestly, in this matchup, the self-healing doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's the trick with this card, I find, is you spend a lot of time trying to corrupt it, and after a while you look at your hand and go, why am I just playing this card? I don't need the lifesteal anyway, I need to kill my opponent. And it's a nice bonus, but if you're not careful, you get sucked into trying to corrupt it when you just don't need to.
Oh, this looks like it could be lining up okay. There's the Fel Screamer in hand for ShuiMoo now, and now Philosophy with the Moarg, or one of the Moargs, already in hand. I do wonder how he is going to navigate this. And for me, this is where the real skill in piloting OTK Demon Hunter is. It's not whether you can count up the lethal. It's not, well, I guess part of it is drawing the skulls, but it's just navigating these slightly tricky turns in the mid game, not using too many of your resources, but also not being too stingy and then losing the game because you just tried to save an AoE when you could have just cleared the board.
And we saw that perfectly earlier today from Maverick, who just burned through resource after resource and then just had exactly the right number of things left on the last card of his deck. And something I've noticed about these players, actually, who have brought this deck is they play it very quickly most of the time. It's like, you've got to have played it enough. To bring this deck, you've got to have played it a lot. But when you play it a lot, it seems like the decisions kind of become instinctive very quickly.
Yes, I 100% believe combo decks that don't have a simple end combo. Obviously, we've had combo decks in the past, say like Holy Wrath Paladin, right? Well, you know what to do. It's the same combo every single time. more or less. Whereas this, because the combos can vary so much, this kind of deck, when practiced, becomes just pattern recognition. You look at your hand and go, okay, I can afford to use this, this, and this, or if I don't, if I hold on to this, it makes this number of damage capable in a few turns' time. And I think that is very important, and obviously goes on top of what you're saying, where the players might look like they're making fast decisions, but it's because they've made them probably a million times before, so they know what sort of hand shapes they want going forward.
And we just saw a very good example while you were talking about it there of just play the Moarg and the Fell Scream and that's fine, apparently. Like, you know, you're okay to use those up. There's more Moargs and Fell Screams where that came from. So to clear this important board, ShuiMoo was pretty comfortable. He knew that's exactly what he had to do there, and he could do it without having to worry.
Yeah, very powerful turn here, though. He got the second Truth Seeker, which is really what you want. And now the Libra of Judgment is corrupted, like I said, might not be a big deal in this specific matchup, but he can just clean this board up, keep the Juggler safe. Look at his hand. Libram of Hope and Libram of Judgment. And you can almost forget about the healing factors of these cards. It's an 8/8 Divine Shield Taunt and a 5/3 weapon.
That being said, ShuiMoo is halfway through his deck and has taken 0 damage. Oh, I might be super tempted to take Stelina here.
Yeah, I like this. I like this a lot.
Take away your opponent's best card because they only have 3 in hand.
And I agree with the choice of Libram of Hope. Although Judgment is a lot of damage, it's slower damage and it's damage that you can't really do anything about anyway, whereas a big Divine Shield Taunt minion can get in the way and, you know, start doing the big hits and start trading with the board.
Not the pickup he wanted. It's not a disaster the first day at school, but really a bit slow for what he's looking to do right now.
Hey, loser!
Oh, that's a good one, though. I wish my school was like that.
I think generally the really good ones are additional pen flingers, of course. The Aldor attendants in general, but in this game, because he's got an Aldor attendant double Truth Seeker, then he has enough Libram reduction anyway. So yeah, I think those two are just decent aggro tools.
Oh, you're so greedy. They're great cards. But yeah, I get the point. I understand. But they're pretty tasty. There's a lot of bad one-drops out there. Although that being said, when you play first day of school, you do soon find that even the bad one-drops you can make do something. In our testing, we had an argument with an angry chicken at one point, I believe.
Yeah, yep. And it did end up doing a decent job. Here, though, I think this was a nice trade. Not only does it protect the taunt minion, but also, I think after seeing that Moarg come down a little bit earlier, ShuiMoo might actually think that there is a lack of removal because there had to be a Moarg committed to help with it. Although we can see, of course, Immolation Aura picked up from ShuiMoo can help out with this board to an extent.
Yeah, it's the first time he's really had to make decisions. That's because he's now got, Ginoth, so however you pronounce that word at this time of the day. So he's going to, every turn now, have to consider how long until I kill my opponent, how long till my opponent kills me. Whereas before, it was that pattern recognition that we were talking about.
Oh, and look at the difference of this Lady Liadrin. This could have given him an additional Libram of Hope, but because ShuiMoo managed to shuffle it back into the deck, it is so much worse. Just 2 Libram of Wisdoms. Sorry, 1 Libram of... I'm getting confused now. Too many Wisdoms. 2 Libram of Wisdoms and 1 Blessing of Wisdom. There we go, I'll get it right in the end. Is very low power level based on what Liadrin could have been even in this specific game.
The health total is starting to dwindle now. Like we're 1 turn away in some worlds, depending on these pen flingers and what spell is picked up. It could be lethal next turn. So if that is a buff spell, that would be lethal next turn.
Oh,
obviously, it won't be because ShuiMoo will do something about it, but yeah.
Yeah, what he wouldn't do for 1 extra mana this turn as that skull goes into the far right.
Yeah, it'd be nice for him, but he is... Well, both of them are sort of all in at this point. There's not a lot going on either side with 2 pen flingers chipping away and a skull and just some combo parts on the other side. I think ShuiMoo might still be okay, though.
I think you do have to respect the Penflingers and Librams because it's 2 damage per Libram plus the 1 damage per Libram as well this turn.
Sure.
So that is stacking up. That's like effectively 2-turn lethal if this continues.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And you've always got the hero power to make a dude to put the Librams on next turn. Okay, yes. More than I've given it credit for.
Reporting for duty.
Trying to count my damage on the Demon Hunter side, but it depends so much on how he activates his skull.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly triple check here. Yes, it's the single Libram of Judgment in ShuiMoo's deck, so there isn't a chance at drawing another one. So I wouldn't actually mind because of that if he held this swing.
Okay, that's fair. Although there are other weapons that he might want to play, right? Or is that it now?
Well, he has another Libram of Justice, but
yeah.
Are you ranking a 1-attack weapon as a real weapon here?
It's another point of damage to the face. That's the thing. It is a point, and he's getting quite close to lethal. So, no, but I'd want to count it just in case.
No, but yes, basically.
Yeah. No, but yes. I'm going with that. That's my final answer here. Philosophy looks tempting. Yeah, I think he didn't want to, but it was the prudent choice that keeps him in a great spot. And
everyone! Alas, poor warlock.
Oh my goodness. This is a lot of stuff suddenly.
Time grows short.
It is, and that's the joy of getting Skull, of course. It just really opens up the deck and allows him to basically combo out. He has only 6 cards left in the deck now, considering Shinsuke has 16. It's quite a big difference in draw rate, but ShuiMoo does have to make this work, and
he has to be quick, Raven, as well.
I'm sure he's locked it in.
I mean, I never am. I'm never sure when you're playing from China and you're playing on the American server. Like, these things can go wrong.
Isn't... Oh, no, okay. That's just lethal, right?
Yes.
Isn't that just... That was just lethal 100% of the time.
Yes.
Okay, that was strange because he had an I-beam too. Obviously, the end of the turn went very fast with some card draw from ShuiMoo, but I believe that was even on his side of the board, 100% guaranteed. He knew about the 2 Librams. Yep. He knew about the 2 Jugglers as well. So yeah, wow.
Yeah, he knew all the things.
Sort of sudden ending to the game where I thought he still had a bit of life.
Yeah, he went into panic mode on that rope, I think. And maybe it was connected with server. It's not a huge amount of lag. It's just enough to throw you off your natural playtesting. And maybe that bothered him under the high pressure situation. Like, he would have probably tested on American server as well, but oof, that was rough.
Yeah, that is just... Again, the end of the turn went very quickly with the card draw and everything. Obviously, the rope was burning away, and actions were made that obviously, in our view, we could not see because he was on the top side of the board. But it's always bad when you end a turn with lifesteal in hand that maybe you could have got off in the game when you know you're 100% dead with the information you have. So maybe a rough ending to that game for ShuiMoo, but it is still a win for ShuiMoo. So that's looking really good, getting the Paladin win there against OTK Demon Hunter, and that means now he has this Rogue and Warrior left. And just a reminder, the Warrior is the Pain Warrior, and this Rogue is going to be that Whirl Kick Rogue. It is ShuiMoo who has the aggro variant, but yeah, really tough choices there. You can see, again, what I talked about earlier, the knowing how much AoE, how many Moags you can commit, but then this really, even though ShuiMoo didn't really have tons of cards, he still ended the game with, I think, 15 or 16 cards in the deck. He had enough, and ShuiMoo just couldn't quite piece everything together at the right time.
Yeah, something went wrong on that last turn, I'm pretty sure. I don't want to swear to it, but like there's an I-beam in his hand, and he's dead on board, and maybe there wasn't a way to do it, and that's why it took him so long, but it feels like he should be still in this game, or maybe he just couldn't find a way of doing it and preserve a way to win the game. That's also a possibility.
Yeah, I'm sure some of the pros watching this might be, screenshotting some of those hands and that turn just to see if there was a way not only to survive, but to actually survive and say, well, there's still these cards in the deck that will then win the game in the following turns. Because obviously, if he had to say Moag I-Beam that turn, then how does he get to the other cards to actually kill his opponent and take the game there? So, bit of a tricky one, but we are going to be moving on to our game number 2. Still a lot on the line for these players. Again, just a reminder, if you're joining us, this is at top 16 now. We are done with the Swiss. The winner continues to the top 8 tomorrow, and the loser has to call it a day and call it a tournament with I think it's still a very strong performance of a top 16 finish.
Yeah, top 16, you have done well in a 400-player field. There's no other way to word it but that. It's a tough way to go out because you feel like you didn't complete the tournament because you didn't make the final day. But it's not like that at all. You made the final cut, and if you do go out of this stage, and 8 people will, congratulations for getting this far. When you wake up tomorrow, you'll feel terrible, but in a week or two's time, you'll feel great.
Yeah, interesting point for this deck list as well is there is that one Brain Freeze in there with the 1 Nitro Boost Poison. So Brain Freeze, not really a card, at least I've seen too much used in this World Kick Rogue, but still just a good card in itself. I think I remember when I saw it, when it was initially announced for the expansion, I was like, this just has to be one of the best cards in the game because not only is it good at the dealing damage, but also the freeze effect being very, very strong indeed. So we'll see if that pays off for him in any way, as he is going to be locking in that rogue. But what do you make of ShuiMoo's chances here, Lorinda? Do you think that was just a bit of a stumble for that first game loss and he can recover with this lineup?
I'm hoping so, but it is like 1,000,000 o'clock in the morning, playing through the night in China and in Japan as well, come to that. So if they haven't managed to sort sleeping patterns and things out going into this, which it's day 2, they're probably fine by now, but just a sign maybe there that somebody's getting tired. It is a possibility. It does happen.
Yeah, it is a potential one there. I think we are just finding out what that second deck is going to be as the players are getting ready to go into game number 2. But again, we will be checking out some of the other top 16 matches, I believe, after this one. So by all means, stay tuned when we are done here. I believe Darek and Gia might be taking in some games a little bit later on, but we will see when we get to it. But I'm just excited to see if this OTK Demon Hunter can get a win because it is definitely, I would say, going into this tournament, Lorinda, the maybe along with Priest, but the deck I expected either everyone to bring or everyone to try and counter in some way, because I just think among the top level pros and all the top level players which we have here, that it's a very well respected and some players think broken level of deck.
Interesting. I thought there'd actually just be Priest and Rogue, and I've got to admit I thought there'd be a lot of Paladin doing well. Well, there's a lot of Paladin, but I think that over the period of the 2 days, the casters have started to all agree that it's not really been that great. It's not been terrible, it's not been awful, but the Paladin's kind of been a bit blech. It's the one you're happy to be, to get your win with.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Libram Paladin, and I think, we'll have to look at maybe the win rates at the end of the day, so we've got a really solid sample size of the Swiss. Oh, Lorinda, the second I mentioned stats, Lorinda's like, give me a minute, as he's, he perks up a little bit there. So we are going to go into game number 2. But anyway, I think Libram Paladin, it might not be performing the best, but I still think the deck is a good bring.
I mean, honestly, everything's 50% apart from Priest, which is 46, and Rogue, which is 53.
Imagine playing Priest. Anyway, let's finally go into game number 2. It is going to be the Rogue versus that OTK Demon Hunter once again. And Double Jump and Illidari Studies being kept by ShuiMoo there. So he's going to have access to not only just the card draw from Double Jump, but also just the potential early skull if he doesn't get to it naturally with that Illidari Studies.
Was that a Jandis keep, by the way? I blinked and missed it. I know the cat was there, but I thought the Jandis was there as well. In fact, it must have been if the cat was there, so...
Yeah, I guess it might be. I'm not going to 100% commit because I also blinked, but still, we will find out later, I guess. We can rewind the VOD. But anyway, so far, not too much for ShuiMoo to do here. Can just choose to either draw, chip away at this Pharaoh Cat, or go for that Illidari Studies. But again, it's one of those choices that if you go for Illidari Studies, and its skull, it's kind of wasted because it means you'd have to play both philosophies first and then get the spectral sight out of the way. So he's just going to start cashing in on those Moags nice and early by the looks of things.
Yeah, just getting set up. Feels like he's done 100 things this turn against the cat. Doesn't seem very fair, but this is a nice little curve.
Mummy needs
And
5 more minutes.
the Moags, though, are so good against Rogue. Just as a card you put on the board. No hurry, this isn't massive pressure yet. Need to be careful that nothing snowballs, though. So you've got to keep that pressure a little under control.
It was interesting there. I didn't know whether he was going to go for the Dreadlord's Bite, just because, again, against this rogue, even if you don't do it from Outcast, it's just the weapon itself kills many of the minions you are going to be facing down.
That was my first thought, but actually thinking about it now, it's the other rogue, really, that has all the 1 health things. This is kind of a lot of 1/2s in this deck.
Oh, yeah, but the weapon itself still gets the job done, right? Which is
Yeah. That's fair. But against the stealth rogue, the weapon just blows everything.
Oh, yeah, it's insane. It's
But
just Raging Fell Screamer. It's just one of the more straightforward plays you make in the deck, that it is a card you can just throw down because its effect is like forever, or until you do it, I suppose, as opposed to that turn.
this is why the Jandis Keep is something I'm interested in, because this slow start is because you kept a 5 cost in your opening hand. So that 5 cost had better be good. I mean, it is good. Jandis is obviously pretty decent, but he's now in the position. Actually, I know he wants to be greedy with his coin, and obviously there's an Eviscerate to consider with a World Kickmaster, but jamming a Jandis also seems kind of something you want to do.
Dude, yeah, there's even the extremes, right? He could coin Jandis, Shadow Step the Jandis, and then just prep
What makes something
Eviscerate anyway, or just backstab double trade.
Wow, this is a super Jandis, and he's going to do the things you said, I think. I would hope. Oh, this rope's scaring me now after that last game. Just point the things at the face and attack it. That's it.
Did he get
Get the Shadow Step off.
Yes, okay.
It really looked like he'd sort of changed his mind or didn't get it or something for a second there, but okay. That's huge, and that's a lot of damage that needs dealing with now on the board.
This is going to be tricky to navigate, though, because by using the philosophies early on, ShuiMoo's basically got all those Moags on the left side of his hand, and now that he's drawn the skull on 5 mana, if there's a fairly expensive card drawn next turn, then this skull could get maybe locked a little bit, because it's not that common that you're okay with just playing 3 Moags just to clean out your hand, especially now that after the first one they're going to be costing 2. So again, this is just going to be super interesting to see how ShuiMoo actually just, I guess, dissects this hand to make it work for him.
Yeah, I think he's just going to... You just don't have to overly worry about this skull. If you don't get to play it, you don't get to play it. It's more about being full-on defense mode. He's got the minion defense he needs.
What makes something
You probably get a chance to get those Moags down in a bit and then slowly shuffle the skull along. Obviously you want the skull. Obviously it's the thing that's most important in your whole deck, but there is another one.
Yeah, Mortuary Machine. I think it's one of those moments where you just decide you want an 8/8, even though it has the Reborn effect. Although, looks like ShuiMoo actually just refuses to join in on that and just says, nope, this can be weak. I don't want you to have Reborn.
Not the worst time to have a little bluff as well. Anyway, like... It's a pretty bad minion.
I mean, it's an 8/8. I guess one of the weird ways, like, it's probably not going to happen, but because of Reborn, like, it could be a time where you play the Moags, you can then AoE your own Moags down for damage, and then they're back again. So then
Skull
you can go
time.
again. But yes, he did manage to get the skull from the Illidari studies, and honestly solved a lot of problems that ShuiMoo had there, as he's hit Il'gynoth mainly for that one cost, opens up plenty of mana going forward. He does now just need to hit the spells.
Yeah, do you shoot your shot here with the Org Merchant? Do you have a go and try and guess which is the thing to shoot?
I don't think he needs to, because he can probably like double jump skull. Nah, is that too slow?
Yeah, that's what he's thinking about, right?
I guess you can, right? Because because ShuiMoo still has another Org Merchant in hand too. So it's a little bit tricky.
If you miss, you're giving away some spell damage. Although, there's not that much to worry about there. Chooses not to. This is some damage that's going to clatter into the face now. So the choice here is whether to play the questing or just go straight for the passage, and he's going straight for the passage.
It looks like he's about to just redraw the exact same hand, but no,
Yeah.
he does have Prep Swindle available.
Spin like the suns, strike like the winds.
Prep is so good. I can't remember a time in the last year or two where Prep has been particularly broken in Rogue. It's one of the cards you play because you're playing Rogue and not much more. But in this deck, Prep is so insanely good.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that Swindle exists, right? The old nerf on Prep is actually fine because it still reduces Swindle down to 0.
And it's all the other little combos. You want to play Swindle because you're playing Foxy, so the Prep's good, and it all just gels together.
You know, one thief as well. It activates one
Questing
thief, in which then you get
adventure.
a spell and so on. Yeah, it's really strong.
Your questing.
But
It's nutty.
this is a ton of pressure, and ShuiMoo once again with this OTK Demon Hunter has to pull something out of the bag, and that'll help. Wait, is this just lethal?
I think it must be. By
am I
the speed
that
at which
bad?
he's doing it, it feels like it must be lethal.
Oh, I
There's
guess
no way it's
full
not
spell
lethal just
damage.
based on speed, okay? I'm not even going to work it out. I'm also trying to move an animal out of my way. There's 20.
Yeah, it's not right.
Okay.
I'll be the first to admit that as soon as ShuiMoo started just blasting out that turn, I was like, wait, is one I-beam lethal here? I would have been surprised, but not utterly surprised, but it is not. Okay, I should have stuck with my first instinct of thinking, surely a single I-beam does not do that much damage with this hand. So yeah, it looks like ShuiMoo is going to go 2-0 up and only have Pain Warrior left. That is a fantastic position to be in for him right now.
I have never seen somebody in a big tournament go that quickly and then just be... it wasn't even close. It was just wrong.
And before people maybe jump to conclusions, I think ShuiMoo would have just known that wasn't lethal, but he had no other play that would have done anything anyway. So I think he just went, okay, I'll show my opponent
he's going
what
for
I had
concede.
Available.
He's going
Right,
for
it
the
was-
concede. He's
Yeah,
going for
it
the
was just
Navi.
like, I'll show you what I had, and then I've lost, because I'm pretty sure he would have, if he had a play to live, he would have made it. But yeah, again, another tricky game with OTK Demon Hunter, and it really is a tough one. And like I said, the tough bit really isn't like counting the combos, it's making sure you manage your resources well enough to not only like not die, but also have enough to finish the game.
Yeah, I'm convinced that it wasn't just showing his opponent. I'm convinced he was going for the concede because he played it all so fast.
Oh really? You think he was trying to just make him just hit the concede button?
Yeah, he was going for the Navi play. Like, just play everything as if you've got lethal and hope your opponent concedes. I can't think of it. Otherwise, you try and gain 20 health, right?
Right.
Try and stay alive. You don't even play the Il'gynoth. You just...
But that's the problem, right? If that would have been the play, then he uses all the Moags, and then he just doesn't win anyway, right? Because he can have health, but then there's no cards to win the game.
Sure.
But if you want,
yeah.
as an aspiring pro Hearthstone player, you might not think I can teach you anything, but one lesson I can give is if you're in a tournament game, never concede. Wait for your opponent to kill you, then the game is over. Never press the concede button. But
It had to be that, right? It just had to be. Because I was convinced, because I thought, well, Raven's not going to get this wrong. And then it's like, oh, Raven must be wrong because the pro player's firing all the cards out really quick.
Okay, well, ShuiMoo is, I did tell a slight lie as well. It is not simply Pain Warrior he has, it is ETC Warrior. It is his opponent who has the, I guess, pure Pain Warrior going on there. So we are going to see some ETC coming out of ShuiMoo here, and it's a deck I definitely like watching because it has all the, I guess, general ability of Pain Warrior to an extent with a lot of similar tools, but does have that really cool combo, which is quite frankly quite difficult to play around for their opponent, right?
Yeah, people say, oh, just don't play any minions. Yeah, just don't play any minions in a game. You know, the game is about putting minions on your board and hitting people with them. Just don't play any minions doesn't work a lot of the time because you just die to the Rattlegore or something if you do it that way.
Or even just the board that the deck can create in itself. There are still just good cards in the deck anyway, right? Because even you've got to look at the Sword Eaters especially can start getting a lot of chip damage done. There's also, if it's going up against Demon Hunter, which it's not at the moment, as we can see ShuiMoo has actually changed to this Rogue, but still quite relevant. This has Risky Skipper and Armor Smith and Bloodsworn Mercenaries in the deck, which means in this matchup specifically, we may not even see the ETC combo or the Rattlegore even required, because you can definitely get to enough health and the empty board where your opponent will just have to concede.
I would be amazed if we saw the ETC combo in this game. We may even just see it played as a 1-4 early on. Like just something to stop your opponent from hitting you with those 1 health minions, right?
I mean, a 1-4 contests a ton of these minions, right? So like the Worgen Infiltrator, the Spy Mistress, obviously Prize Plunderers to an extent, but the Sneaky Delinquents, it basically matches it. So yeah, the ETC, if ending up in the opening mulligan, could well just be played on curve as just a bit of a speed bump, I guess, for this Rogue. So pretty cool matchup we've got coming up right now, but as I said, it is important just to think about the fact that Risky Skipper exists in this build of Warrior, which means it can just obliterate the board. But something important to remember is you definitely don't want to rush that out, because if you Risky Skipper 1 stealth minion, that's nowhere near as good as letting the Rogue build up just a bit more of a board and then going through with it. But on the other hand, ShuiMoo does have a lot of work to do here, Lorinden.
Yeah, a lot of work, and I'm going to stick with the he did that on purpose last game line, because if he didn't, he's not winning this match. Like, if he's actually lost it enough that he miscounted that one, then he's done. But so we'll go with the fact he was trying to go for the concede and that he's not done. But he's still got his work cut out to get 3 wins against this deck, which you said it at the start is actually proving to be pretty strong, both versions of this Warrior, because this is very similar to the Pain Warrior in a lot of its how it functions.
Yeah, to maybe oversimplify it, it basically removes the Korkron combo and replaces it with an ETC combo.
Yeah.
But other than that, the deck is predominantly the same thing. Here we are with ShuiMoo with his opening hand, keeping the Stealth into his Greyheart Sage combo. Doesn't get a Spy Mistress, but does get a second Greyheart Sage, so we might even see the Sneaky Delinquent, if it lives, or maybe it's Death Rattle, pop the second Greyheart, which means ShuiMoo is going to have access to a ton of card draw this game.
Yeah, neither player are going to be particularly thrilled about that opener, but ShuiMoo is definitely in the better spot of the two, which he needs to be, because he could just lose, like you say, to Risky Skipper at any point. So
here though as well, this is another big deal. Warmaul Challenger coming down, and although it doesn't look too threatening with its attack, it will basically farm a ton of these minions.
Yeah, we just discussed how a 1-4 is a really good shape. Well, a 1-10 is bigger than a 1-4, so work that one out.
It is interesting though, because this Greyheart Sage has put a bit of a spanner in the works, because suddenly, well, there's no minion to trade into for the Warmaul, and there's currently no Inner Rage or Bloodsworn to generate like just a wide board in that fashion. So ShuiMoo did get away with it a little bit, drawing the Evil Quartermaster, but if he hadn't, his turn definitely did not look that great.
Yeah. No, you can't attack that minion. It has stealth. But good try. And, yep, draw loads more cards and get on with the fight now, I think, if you're ShuiMoo. You haven't got long, because if you go too long, those skippers start dealing with armor smiths as their friends, and then things go really, really wrong.
Right. And you might think, why, with 2 self-sharpening swords in hand, would ShuiMoo not be like trying to load that one up, right? Play self-sharpening, get the attacks cooking as quick as possible. Well, the reasons are one of the cards you just saw drawn, which is Nitro Boost Poison, but also as well the deadly poison that he can get, which will then help out just push that extra damage. Because if you can play self-sharpening sword and a weapon buff with its initial attack, that weapon gets disgustingly large.
Interesting how much slower he's playing now.
Yeah, I think with this volume of card draw, I do like that trade, because he still just has a stealth minion in hand that he can replace it with. And these 3/3s are a pretty reasonable threat right now, because this Warmaul, without some kind of buff, doesn't really achieve much.
Yeah, I wonder if he's just going to try and set up for a smallish Battle Rage over the next turn or two. Because his hand, frankly, is horrible.
Yeah, he will have Reaper's Scythe swing this turn, and then Cutting Class to activate its Cleave next turn, which will also, of course, draw cards. So that's still a backup plan where he can still try and rely on holding off for maybe a bigger Battle Rage if he can get hold of a Risky Skipper.
Gonna need a bigger Battle Rage.
But I think now is the time.
If only he was against Shark Rogue, that would actually be funny.
He's going to get the Nitro Boost procced, and look at the damage start to stack now. 5 damage being pushed from the minion, 3 from the weapon that's now going to go up to 4. There's ShuiMoo's own Cutting Class to keep the power going, and he's going to just draw through his whole deck at this rate, and that is so much damage that without Risky Skipper Armor Smith, ShuiMoo is going to be in a bit of a problem here to try and solve this issue.
Yeah, he's going to need to he's going to have to get the skippers and the armor smiths and everything sort of now. Like all at once before he dies in 2 turns' time. Because look at all that damage. ShuiMoo's just got so much. I don't want to count it because there's pen flingers and things making it complicated, but it's a lot. As the technical phrase goes. So needs more cards. Well, surely he doesn't want to barrel this away because he kills more of his own stuff than the opposing stuff.
He might need to.
I know. I'm trying everything to not have that happen.
He could, like, commit a Broom, right? And triple trade with, like, Broom and Guardian Org Merchant, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Do something?
It's horrid.
Yeah, this is not great, but it's something that means he doesn't take 5 damage from this minion next turn.
Yeah, and he gets to press the armor button as well. Did he get to press it? He got to do something.
No,
he got the battle rage off. Yeah, he got the battle rage off. So, well, he's through a lot of his deck. So the only good news for him is he's very likely to draw into all the good cards very soon. The bad news is very soon needs to be next turn.
I mean, yeah, he's close to dying this turn.
Yeah.
There's the 4 damage from the weapon. There's the Eviscerate and Sinister Strike for an extra 7. There's the Pen Flinger for an extra couple in there as well, along with that prep. So he is very close to just being dead.
Don't rope the Pen Flingers, please, ShuiMoo. I don't think I can take it. Wait. Okay, good.
Yeah, and this is actually might look strange, but is really nice. If he already has that much burst, save it for next turn. Redraw a new hand. Maybe you get Deadly Poison, there's a second Pen Flinger, more card draw as well. So this is really cool, actually, and I really like the way ShuiMoo's done this.
Yeah, he worked out how much he has in his hand that should finish it all off next turn. And just like you say, just digging now, you have 1 more mana next turn to be able to use all that lovely, lovely stuff.
Well, there's the Davis, right?
Natural hand. Eight, and we know there's more than 8 in hand, so...
I mean, it's 5 just from the weapon.
Some kind of miracle needed here. I'm not sure even Enrage Warrior can get this going. Hello, can you just end, please, turn? Thank you. Nope. Not a single card draw in the hand, right? Play the 2/5 taunt and hope that nothing bad happens to you.
Yeah, he could also evolve the Warmaul Challenger to potentially get an Ascended Shieldmaster or something, like just another taunt or something to get the job done. He's going to go for Armor Up instead.
My hand is too full.
But I believe that will just be lethal because he has so much damage with these Pen Flingers, along with the Eviscerate and the Sinister Strike.
Yeah, he does. I'm just going to let him do it this time, though. I'm not going to assume anything, even though I can count it and see quite clearly that it's lethal with the Sinister Strike and the 2.
I mean, yeah, it's lethal without swinging the weapon.
Yeah.
So he could have, for example, like eviscerated the 2/4, swung in with the weapon. It doesn't really matter. He can do whatever he wants. He has so much damage, and that was a very, very well played game there from ShuiMoo. But again, it does kind of just harken back to, well, guess what we didn't see? We didn't see the Risky Skipper, and we didn't see any real way to not only clear the board, but really just get those Armor Smiths and gain the health, because you can do it against Rogue. But ShuiMoo just drew so many cards. It was kind of absurd. He just had his whole deck to work with for the whole game there.
Still trying to work out what the point of damage on the Sword Eater was for, but maybe... There we go.
He probably just changed his mind, but also he did it in a fashion where he could have plundered, I guess, the 4 damage, so he could swing with the weapon, because it's like 1 mana after 2 jugglers and everything. He could have dealt 4 and gone through. So really, he had about 20 different ways to lethal that game, and he just picked the one he saw, I guess. But yeah, these 2 Greyheart Sages were really the MVP for me, because it just allowed him so much card draw early on, which then gives him the flexibility to just keep on with that damage.
Yeah, and with nothing coming from the other side at all, pretty much an unopposed win. And it's a big deal, because that looked like, you know, a very tough one for the Rogue to get through, and he's through it. And 2 games left now to come back. It feels so much better when you're 2-1 down to 2-0. It feels like infinitely better somehow.
There is one thing to remember, though, because this is the ETC version of the Warrior. Some of these other matchups, maybe the slightly slower matchups, can be tougher, right? Because it's not necessarily you need to win on board. You just need to get to the state where you can go off with ETC, and then you will just win. So, you know, I think ShuiMoo's still got plenty of gas left, and he can get the job done. But it looks like he's going into, I guess, a kind of mirror, but not really, as ShuiMoo is playing the much more like sort of expected base version of Pain Warrior without any big ETC combo. But he does have that Grommash Hellscream for some burst damage late game, and the 1 Kor'kron Elite, which can of course be duplicated with the Inner Rage Bloodsworn Mercenary combo. Yeah,
just the 1, which is interesting to me. That's very it's reasonably normal, but it's also just such a tight build. I always quite liked 2 just for that comfort blanket, but
yeah,
top level you can't afford comfort blankets, I guess.
Yeah, I think the idea is with 1, if he's playing 1, then he has that Hellscream to make up the difference, because maybe he has to use a Kor'kron earlier on, but then like Grom, Inner Rage, Shield of Honor is still a absurd amount of damage from hand. So combos are still available, they're just not as flashy. But what it does help with is it means he can more freely use his Bloodsworn Mercenaries on other things and not feel like he's thrown away his combo, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just another card as well. So going to be a tight one. There's very little to choose. We've already said that it's basically the same deck, and if you look down the deck list, they match for nearly the whole way down when you've got them side by side, and there's just the occasional card change.
Yeah, I think
getting some early tempo is surprisingly important here.
Yeah, and of course, one difference that we could see come into play, not including the ETC combo, of course, is just like the 2 of Broom in the ETC version. Maybe that comes into play with, you know, even just base minions being used to clean up some board. But
yeah,
let's get into it. Just 1 more win needed for ShuiMoo to be able to bank a spot in that top 8 tomorrow, or ShuiMoo, if he takes the win, he's got to take 1 more once again against this ETC Warrior to be able to steal the spot away so far.
First thing you think here is, where were you last game, cards? Where were you last game? The second you get that out of your head, you get on with this game where you don't need the risky skip and throw it away. Yeah.
Yeah, keep on the Sword Eater makes sense. I think the card is so good, even if it's not always correct. If you applied that, some of those base mulligan rules, or at least I like to apply to some of my play, where you just always keep this card. Because at worst, it's going to be not bad, but most of the time it's above good, right? It's one of your top cards to keep in your mulligan, and for me, Sword Eater definitely gets there.
Yeah, and you don't have, neither side has monstrous amounts of removal for a medium-sized minion. So there's definitely an element, a big element. The game is about getting some tempo going here a lot of the time.
What now?
It's unlikely, it's not unlikely, but you don't always win this with just a killer combo. You sometimes win it by just hitting them with 2 4/5s that you've buffed up or whatever.
I do think this hand is very important for ShuiMoo, though, because the double battle rage means that he can plan around this, and basically all his plays will be aimed at getting these battle rages off, and the quicker he draws the deck, the quicker he gets to that huge combo.
Go get him!
Talking of huge, this Titanic Lackey is pretty large. It's going to make this a formidable minion, and he may just look at inner raging and start smacking around here. This is super tempting. I'm not surprised he's considering it.
Yeah, it is, and again, in the ETC version, you don't need Inner Rage for the combo, as long as you can duplicate the ETC, which you can do with the Guardian Org Merchant, or the other Inner Rage, of course, or even in some weird aspects, like if you have 2 brooms, you can rush the ETC in first and then make the other ones. There are plenty of options.
Yeah, but going back, ShuiMoo now, it's his turn to have control for the time being, but this backup Sword Eater on the other side, it's going to be a bit of back and forth for a couple of turns here, but...
Yeah, really interesting interaction here, though, because that swing from ShuiMoo is actually, activated Shield of Honor.
Right.
So then he can actually just return swing with Shield of Honor and then keep the minion on board.
He might be very tempted to see just how massive he can make this Warmaw challenger. That's why he's thinking for so long here. That's a big Warmaw challenger in the making, and it's not that easy to remove. Yeah, so he's saving all this gubbins for, well, probably the Warmaw, but even potentially this brute might be a target.
Someone's gotta lead the charge.
This is one of these awkward situations here where, again, I spoke right at the beginning about Battle Rage being key for ShuiMoo, but there's just been no way to proc even one for a half-decent Battle Rage. Never mind the big ones he'll be really looking for.
Yeah, he's got behind now for absolute sure.
Oh
my
I'm just
goodness,
gonna
this is
say,
insane.
The one saving grace is there's no Blood Swan Mercenary for this Blood Bowl Brute, but there it is. And now this turn could get pretty nutty, honestly.
I mean, if he could see the opposing hand, he definitely just makes a monster here. But he probably just does it anyway, yeah.
Yes, I think you just do it anyway, because what actually deals with this, you can Inner Rage and then just double Shield of Honor even. And
it's
just
just
make
Barov
two
and Skipper.
Giants.
That's your danger. If you walk into Barov Skipper, you're kind of losing the game if you go for too much here. That's the only thing even half holding him back on going completely all in. So we might just see a compromise being 2 7/7s, which is fine, right?
Oh, I think I'd play at least one Shield of Honor.
I think I.
Like getting
Although he might
double
put it on the
Divine
Warmaw.
Your flaws.
He's going to kill the 1/2
okay,
Warmaw
okay.
and save those for next turn to put on the Warmaw, I think. Because if this board doesn't get killed now, then your opponent doesn't have the battle. And then you just kill him.
We might have to see a bit of a flimsy Battle Rage this turn from ShuiMoo.
Eat your flesh!
Yeah, he's going to have to do something.
Okay. It's not enough, of course, with no Blood Swans, but he's piecing together the combo.
Right, how much do you want to commit, ShuiMoo? It's easy for us to say. How much can you piece together from what you just saw?
So this is where the decision point is, right? And I like what I'm seeing already here from ShuiMoo because, yes, it would be nice to keep combo pieces for late game. Well, at the moment, there's no Battle Rage, there's no card draw. What late game? There's an Armor Smith and some buffs. So I like just maybe he could just trade the 1-8 in, take the damage and forget about it and just put everything on this 10-7, the Blood Bowl Brute. Or he could put the other Shield of Honor on the Warmaul Challenger, use that to trade the Brute and have 2 reasonably threatening minions there.
He could also Shield of Honor the Challenger and use the Inner Rage to kill the Brute and just shovel everything into the face.
Well, there you go. I think we've outlined all the options. And as long as there's some kind of all-in here from ShuiMoo, regardless of what option he picks, I like it. Because he just doesn't have the cards, right? I think he has to expect at this point in the game, this is what he has to work with. It puts a ton of pressure on ShuiMoo, and he has to win the game off this.
Yep, good luck. 25, go. So the Demon Hunter deck, Raven. It's going to come down to that, I think.
Don't be too crazy right now.
Lots of card draw options.
I mean, there's a taunt in his hand, right? So if he can do something about one of the minions.
Can he find
okay, yeah, they're not great. Yeah, I think the minions are just too big. If he Armor Smith, so he can play Armor Smith, Guardian Orc Merchant, the Armor Smith, which is then 3 mana. And then Broom, trades the Broom and the Guardian Orc Merchant in to gain some more armor. It's just not going to be enough because he can't actually kill the Blood Bowl Brute. Or even the Warmaul Challenger at this point.
Yeah, and he's obviously racking his brains just to find something that buys a turn because obviously if he kills these off, he probably wins the game, weirdly enough. But he just doesn't have the resources to do so by the look of it.
It's just not enough. And that's going to be game. We're going to a game number 5, Lorinda. ShuiMoo's going to end up back on the OTK Demon Hunter, but that was a rough one. But I do like the sort of reading of the situation there from ShuiMoo saying, well, none of these card draw cards are coming. I've just got to work with what I've got. And he just put everything on the board and said, this has to be enough. And guess what? It was.
Yeah, and although that wasn't a direct mirror, the thing that happens in the mirror is you have to be able to think way outside of the normal box. It's like, okay, how do I use these cards to win this game? I know that sounds really obvious, but a lot of these games you play on muscle memory. You've played this game a million times before, so you just do A, B, C. But when you're playing the Warrior Mirrors, you do have to look at each board state with fresh eyes each time and say, okay, I think I can go for this. Do I really think I can go for this? And then you've got to sort of, yeah, here we go, I'm all in. Let's hope my read is correct. At the end of a long day in the top 16 of the biggest event he's been in. Getting it right. Nice work.
It's a huge deal, and now everything's going to be decided on this last game. And funnily enough, both players are probably feeling under pressure now because both of them are playing the deck that's done the worst for them.
Yep.
With ShuiMoo losing the first 2 games on his Demon Hunter, and ShuiMoo now losing his last 2 games on his Warrior. So we are kind of just seeing who's got the best worst deck, at least performance-wise, in this best of 5. So I imagine both players now are feeling the pressure. But I guess if we're going on just potential emotional state, ShuiMoo has just won 2 games and had the biggest break from his losing deck, which was 2 games ago now, whereas ShuiMoo was leading 2-0 and has to cue the deck he just has gone 0-2 with. So I guess if we're going to start handing out points of favours to who we think is going to at least be in a mental position to perform well here, it would have to go to ShuiMoo now.
Yeah, absolutely doesn't apply in this situation, but I'm going to say it anyway because, you know, we say things. In tennis, when a player goes 2 sets to love up and then it comes back to 2-all, the person who started off 2-0 is the favourite based on worldwide lifetime stats.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's to do with them easing off too much.
Oh, okay. So based on So you're saying they're normally the favourite based off what factually has happened in the results?
Right, yeah, the PSG
Right, okay.
2-0 up ends up winning 3-2 if it comes back to 2-2. That's just a psychological thing. Doesn't apply to Hearthstone decks, which is why it doesn't really apply. But again, I thought I'd mention it while we're
I
filling in
learned
the gap.
something, so I'm happy. Like, it's always a good thing. But we are going to be diving into game number 5 of Hearthstone, not tennis. And we do see ShuiMoo already has that skull in the perfect position, so no surprise whatsoever that that bad boy is going to be kept. And also, wow, Twin Slice is the only thing standing in the way from skull number 2. So that is a huge deal for this game.
And I was going to say that can sometimes be a long way off, though, turn 5, turn 6 for you against the warrior. But once again, there's really not much going on in this hand.
Job's done.
So it's a nice hand, but passing for 2 or 3 turns when your opponent has double skull lined up might not end well.
Yeah, just going to be a spectral sight here for ShuiMoo, just going to be able to draw 1 additional. And again, at this point, with this kind of hand for him, he doesn't have to worry about maximizing every single tiny piece of card draw, and the same goes for his acrobatics as well. You don't have to worry about it because you have 2 skulls back to back. Like, that is close to all the card draw you'll realistically need for the whole game. He just has to make sure he gets there safely. I do like this development of the Sword Eater if ShuiMoo goes for it, of course, because it's not only a slightly lower power weapon than the Reaper's Scythe, but it's the minion as well, right? So overall, he's actually representing more damage than the Reaper's Scythe.
Yep. Yeah, getting that damage out there. I love how the Sword Eater's just eating it wrong. It's great. You know? Because Sword Eater affairs sort of swallow the sword and he's just eating it. It's like, it's amazing. It's some of the best art there is. But ShuiMoo is going to be under very little early pressure with those skulls. And if those skulls even half connect, I think he's going to be in a good spot.
Yeah, and I think this Twin Slice here already is being hovered over and thought about, because if he's going to coin skull, potentially into skull, ShuiMoo needs to get rid of some of these cards. And
right.
this second slice, sorry, is not like hyper important to the game plan. It effectively, does heal him up a little bit, but it's not going to make too much of a difference. It really is just about emptying and creating some hand size.
Yeah, it looks such a weird play, but like you say, it doesn't really matter. You either do 48 or you don't. So the 2, it's not irrelevant. Nothing's ever irrelevant, but it's pretty low end on the scale right now.
And yet again for ShuiMoo, this is like such a weird hand because nothing quite does what he wants it to. Yet again, there's 2 Battle Rages in hand and just no real way to create a Battle Rage board.
Is he going to try and armor up like every turn?
Well, this is the thing. At that point, I wouldn't even be overly upset if he played like Guardian Og Merchant and Battle Rage for 1 at this point, or maybe not this turn, but in the near future,
Yeah,
because
soon.
the Battle Rages, if he is going to be able to have some armor, are going to not achieve anything, because it's also not likely that ShuiMoo's going to leave, enemy minions on board that are damaged. He'll either wipe them or he won't.
I'm curious. Got to press one of those buttons. Okay.
No surprise.
ShuiMoo wants to see what he's got.
Like.
Alas, poor warlock.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, not
Unlucky.
half bad.
I love that I-beam interaction. It's so amusing to me.
Yep. Of course, the I-beam, once not in outcast position, will cost 0. Oh, there we go. That's what ShuiMoo's after.
Yeah, that's what he
Card
needs.
draw.
And now some actual damage for the first time in 3 games. Looks like something he can get achieved.
And already, I even wonder if there's any chance of like Inner Rage Bloodsworn. I imagine
I think he
no.
just does it.
Well, I think he thinks he's still got time, because you know, it's not often you die from just the first skull, right? It's not often you're really going to get, you know, 34 plus from one.
You get a battle rage out of it as well, so it's not just that bad.
Yeah, the thing to remember though is he's getting very close to as soon as an ETC is drawn, he wins.
Okay.
Because he won't necessarily need both Bloodswan mercenaries, right?
Yeah, okay. That's fair. He's got
It would be preferable, but you know, you can definitely lose to ETC combo on like turn 7.
Yeah. No, that's a very fair point. It's going to actually give him quite a tough
grow
decision to make.
impatient.
Is ShuiMoo trying to dump some more stuff here so he can get the second skull going? Is that why this is taking a long time? He's just working out which 3 cards don't I want in my hand.
And honestly, this is 90. I think 90% of being good at this deck is just working out what you can throw away, what you can't, you know, and when it's relevant. Well, there's Il'gynoth. Chaos Strike is castable, but he's very quickly running out of time. Gotta chuck the I-beam out, make sure he doesn't overdraw.
Now it's decision time on this side of the board. Almost every card is a possibility this turn, depending how he wants to go about it.
That's an upgrade. Probably.
But he is going to go for the very tough to remove option.
Yeah, he's now just going to commit. This is probably feels quite scary, but most importantly, it gets the battle rage live, and there's some cards he probably likes the look of, at least to an extent. It's not often you can get enough armor to really stop a sort of high-powered Demon Hunter OTK, but at least it's something, whereas if he kept sort of waiting, it would get to that point where nothing happens and then he dies because he didn't actually put any pressure on ShuiMoo whatsoever.
Yeah, I think this is okay. This is what caught my eye, but you're right that it was a tough call because he could just win with combo. ShuiMoo's slowness is starting to concern me after what's happened in the first 2 games.
It's definitely a tricky one, isn't it? Consume Magic looks like an okay pick, but you do have to factor in what I-Beam does to this game, because he doesn't have the mana to go nuts this turn, because obviously the Il'gynoth and the 2 Moargs are full mana, so that's like 8 just to play them, never mind anything else.
Well, still dumping stuff and actually getting something out of it this time.
Looks like I could start with another Battle Rage and see if, you know, ETC Broom decides to make an appearance, because again, this is still doable.
14 cards left on one side, 10 on the other. They're both getting quite close to just doing the thing that wins them the game. So it's a bit of brinksmanship going on here. How long do you think you've got left before you lose? How long do you think you've got left before you win?
What now?
Adjust accordingly.
Yeah, it is tough, isn't it?
Most of those are on this side. Most of those choices are having to be made here. Because ShuiMoo can't really change the speed at which he wins. He either wins or he doesn't. But there's many ways for this warrior to get it done, either with minions, with combo, by drawing cards. And so who wins this is going to be dictated by the decisions made in this next turn or 2 on this side of the board.
It looks like ShuiMoo is just committed to an aggressive board. The Divine Shields will help, of course, with any lifesteal attacks, because they do 0 damage to Divine Shield. But overall, He's pretty much just chucking everything down and hoping some of it sticks right now because there's 2 Bloodsworn Mercenaries used, so there's no copying of ETC available. Or copying of Armorsmiths either.
He's almost at the point where he wouldn't need to copy it. Like, Broom, ETC, and some general garbage would be sort of 8 damage or something. But they're never going to get a place to attack into. That's probably factored in as well. So the combo would be... It is actually a game where the opponent can do the thing I said that they can't do, which is just don't play a minion.
Right. Or do something like that, right? Like Thanos being played is not a problem because it can only receive 1 trade. Therefore, it's only going to be 1 set of damage from the single ETC, which is not enough. Immolation Aura definitely going to help, though, clean this up and continue the card draw cycle for ShuiMoo.
Okay. 4 cards left. This is it, I think. Do 20 or gain a million. How much armor can he gain here? Is there a relevant amount he can gain? With Skipper, 1 Armorsmith, loads of minions in play. Quartermaster, can he get over 48? That's a number that's worth trying to escape.
Probably not without a Bloodsworn, right?
That's my instinct, but my instincts tend to err a little bit low in this deck sometimes.
Also, what else is he going to do? I don't think he's comfortable enough to just play Rattlegore. So I think like getting some kind of Armorsmith turned down regardless is fine, because there's just not many more options. He'll probably go for playing a minion and then going for maybe the Blood Bowl Brute. There's also the consideration of using I-Beam means that if this is some kind of AoE to kill him, then the Armorsmith can potentially help out with that as well. But yeah, I think this is right. Just make as big a board as possible with the added bonus of some extra armor.
Yep, 45. So you were right. He didn't get to 48. But my point's kind of been made as well that, well, that's kind of 48. Because, like you say, I-Beam or the damage to his minions in general will just heal him that little bit extra. So ShuiMoo needs to be very good from this point.
Demons? Demons.
And this is just a huge problem because none of the Moargs are reduced. So he has 4, which is normally over the top in terms of damage needed, but they're all 2 mana. The Il'gynoth is 4 mana. So even now, he's not even on 10 total. So he can play 2 Moargs, the Il'gynoth, the spell damage for 0, and then 1 of the spells of the I'm going to call it Fell Blast because for some reason my brain at this point has just gone
Go for it.
Blank.
I'm not bailing you at this point. My brain is blanker than yours. So you get the nice comments here.
Yeah, Fell Screen
subtle,
Blast.
right?
Fell Screen Blast. That's fine. It's close enough.
I was just having a sneaky look at who had got through the other top 16s, but not much to report.
This is just going to be ShuiMoo actually using these Moargs to just heal up, I think.
Yep.
I like it.
It's funny because this is a play we... Oh, hang on. Oh, no, now I have to count things.
No, it can't be enough, right?
No, there's no copy. There's no copy.
I think it's like 20? 22 with the Ankar? I mean, still a significant amount of damage, but
yeah,
I'd also imagine you'll want to kill these Moargs.
Yep. The Moarg, the merrier.
Wow.
Come on, give me one.
Let's melt some faces.
So he's just playing it as part of the natural scheme of things at this point.
Well, it's more why not play it and deal extra damage,
Right.
and he's probably going to end the turn with it still alive, right? So it still has to be dealt with by ShuiMoo, or there's potential that it's just going to start stacking up even more damage again.
Yep. Yeah, combination of clearing things out and still applying damage is at least handy.
Many cards left.
Not many cards left indeed, and you've got to do 45 damage somehow.
Well, the worst part here is I am not 100% what the last card is. And
Yeah, I mean, sure. I'm
There's no-
not even willing to guess.
And I don't think it's a lifesteal card, right? I could be wrong, I'll be honest, I'm not keeping 100% track of each card, but I've got a funny feeling that outside of this Eldrazi Warblades, ShuiMoo's just going to have to like do this the old-fashioned way, and I just don't think he can now.
I agree with you. I don't think he possibly can either.
Demons? Demons.
Not quite sure why this Moag's even on the board, to be honest. Should have just been
Short.
blown up. Unless he knows, like, which I don't think he does, but unless he knows, I guess.
Well, the Immolation Aura is going to come down. Clear the board on both sides, so the Moag is gone. But the real problem here is this game kind of just depends on what that last card is for ShuiMoo.
Does it even depend now with a Quartermaster? Apparently not. But the fact he's not gaining any more armor to me says he knows it's over.
And that's the problem. I had an inkling it was the second Fell Screen Blast because I didn't remember it being played, but if he had it, that could have changed up everything and gave him the opening to deal all of the damage. But it wasn't the case, and Shinsuke actually just about put enough together there with a combination of armor and some tough choices on when to apply pressure and use those Bloodsworn Mercenaries to take not only that game, but this series, which means he books his spot in the top 8 tomorrow. A really, really big win here for Shinsuke, and a great job for Japan as well. As Darek was mentioning earlier, the past 12 months or so, especially, Japan or Japanese Hearthstone players have been doing extremely well in competitive Hearthstone.
Yeah, and there's no sign of that letting up. It will just get better and better, I suspect. And just a pretty solid performance. He did lose those 2 games, but to be fair to him, the deck did not draw well at all in those 2 games.
Right.
It just went from bad to worse with bad draws. So when he got the cards, he looked pretty comfortable and go and get a good night's rest, or good afternoon's rest, I imagine it is for him right now. So
Yeah, and it was definitely a tricky game to